Three, two, one. What up, folks? Once, once again, it is indeed your boy Tim, the handsome liberal. We got a tale of two topics we're going to discuss here today. I think many of you folks are aware that Daniel Perry, he is the for lack of a better term, he is the white guy that just escaped a manslaughter charge out in New York. He was dealing with an unruly African American on the subway, and I'm sure we'll clarify that as we go on throughout the show. But he was dealing with an unruly African American on the subway out there in New York, and in effort to subdue him, he choked him, put him in a headlock, whatever you want to call it, and held him long enough that the individual passed away. The individual passed away of Daniel Perry's chokehold. And this obviously drew a ton of outrage. The deceased is African American, Daniel Perry is white. We're going to certainly ask questions in regards to it from that aspect. Whether it was racially motivated, the fact that the New York prosecutors went after him. We'll talk about that as well. But I want to ask you folks, because now he had a manslaughter charge dismissed. However, he is still dealing with negligent homicide. Now, the manslaughter charge, I believe it carried either 15 or 16 years, respectively, in prison. He had that charge dismissed. So he has beaten the manslaughter charge. So he won't spend a ton of time in prison, but at the end of the day, prison is prison. He's dealing with a negligent homicide charge that still exists, and the judge out there in New York wants them to come back and continue deliberating on that Monday. So that is tomorrow. His fate is still in the balance. Even negligent homicide is a serious charge. I mean, make no mistake about it. Yeah, you only get 4 years, but damn, who wants to do 4 years behind bars? That's what he is facing in regards to the negligent homicide. I'm gonna ask you folks right out the bat, because many believe he was indeed acting as a good Samaritan. This guy was on a subway causing all kinds of ruckus, and Daniel Perry was simply trying to help. And now, because of his actions, he is dealing with the courts and potentially facing a ridiculous amount of time in prison, even though now it's been reduced down to 4 years. So I want to ask you folks, here's a question simply put. If Daniel Perry was a black guy, same race as the deceased, do you think he would have been charged? I'm asking this question because I want you to let me know, do you believe the effort to go after Daniel Perry was because he was a white guy? Somewhat, we can almost say somewhat racism to some degree, but I want to hear your opinion on that. Do you believe that they decided to go after him because he was white? If Daniel Perry was a black guy, do you think he would have still faced the same charges? Now, also, we're going to talk about it. We always have two topics. Today is no exception. In addition to Daniel Perry, and I certainly want to discuss what happened there, but because some of you folks, as always, tend to correct me on some things, and I don't have a problem being corrected if I am wrong on something. And the Daniel Perry case is certainly going to lead to that. But in addition to that, I want you guys to hear a clip, because as you may have noticed, that the live stream is also titled Deportations to Nowhere. Wow. Deportations to Nowhere. This is a 2-minute clip. This is in regards to President Trump. Remember, he's promising the largest deportation in history.
Administration is preparing a list of places where it might deport migrants if their home countries will not accept them back. That's all according to three sources familiar with those plans. The specific details, though, they're still unclear, but Trump has repeatedly promised to carry out what he calls the largest deportation operation in American history once he takes office. NBC News Homeland Security correspondent Julia Ainsley joins us now with more on her exclusive reporting. Julia, first, just reporter to reporter, my hat is completely off to you for all the late breaking details.
I want you to hear how, remember, Trump is the largest deportation in history. I want you to hear how this is going to go down, because there is a host of countries suggesting that they're not going to take back those that have been deported from their countries.
Details you've managed to get about this new plan, which a lot of us are unclear about how it would actually work. So which countries are on the list?
Yeah, Morgan. Well, as a reporter, sometimes we find these details and we don't exactly know the how. We just know what they're talking about. And in this case, they're talking about sending migrants who were arrested in the United States back to the countries of Turks and Caicos, Panama, Grenada, and the Bahamas, even though these migrants are not from there. This is their workaround when there are lots of migrants in this country from countries that won't take them back, places like.
Now, you heard what she said. So if you are a migrant in America, I don't think I even need to play the rest of it, but if you are a migrant in America and you're here on an undocumented or illegal status, some would say one is the same, but you're here unmigrated, you're here undocumented, and you came here illegally. You have no legal right to be in this country. So America wants to deport you. However, your host nation, the nation you came from, has stated they will not accept you back. Trump is going to solve that by deporting you to a country you didn't come from. The four countries are Turks and Caicos, Bahamas, Panama, or Grenada. Now, all four of those countries, particularly the Bahamas, are on record saying, hell no, we don't agree with that. You're going to send people here that didn't even come from here? So I want to ask you folks, do you agree with deportations to alternative countries? You ever heard of the phrase, you don't have to go home, but you got to get the hell out of here? This is what this is sounding like. So you're possibly going to be deported somewhere where you don't know a damn thing about the culture. You don't know anyone there, perhaps. You might not even speak the language, but you can't stay in America, so we're going to send you there. Do you support alternative deportations to alternative countries? I'm surprised I even got to ask this. This is wild. So if you came here from Guatemala, Nicaragua, or some of these other countries south of the border, maybe even Mexico, maybe they're not taking this guy back or something, and now they're going to send you to the Bahamas, or you came here from Colombia or Venezuela, and now you're being sent to Turks and Caicos. Wow. So I want to ask you folks, do you support deportations to alternative countries? In the comments, by the way, you guys know how the program is ran. We don't block, ban, or censor anyone. Feel free to be critical of anyone in the comment section, up to and including the host. That is how free speech works. We go left of Bernie Sanders to I'm having dinner with Q. Everybody gets to speak here. We are MAGA friendly, been that way since day one, always will continue to be that way. Nevertheless, that's how we talk. So looking in the comments, do you know better? Wait a minute. Do you know better? Be careful that they don't assume that you from South America. And that's what we're talking about, is that you could be sent anywhere depending on, how somebody is, where somebody assumes you're from. Let's say you came from Venezuela, or you came from another country that is war torn, and you don't want to go back there under any circumstance. So when it's time to deport you and they ask you where you're from, either you make up a lie or you refuse to tell them. Do you favor sending that individual to an alternative country? That's what we're going to talk about. And of course, Daniel Perry. Going straight to the box, stick the ruler. Sending you somewhere where you have never been and you might not even know the language. What do you think about that, Stick? Do you support that?
No, I don't support that at all. I think that's the most asinine thing that you can do to somebody. You telling them you don't want them here because they're not from here, but you're gonna send them somewhere else that they're not from. That's the most asinine thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, the issue, I guess, because some are saying that it almost sounds inhumane because you're going to say that they are a danger to this country. We haven't been able to vet them. They're rapists and murderers. But then you have no problem sending them to some other country that they didn't come from. How does that make us look?
God bless America and no one else. See, you see how this stuff goes. Like even with the MAGA accusations is a MAGA confession. Every time they point the finger at somebody, 9 times out of 10, they're doing the shit already.
How does that tie? I don't get. How does that tie into this? What do you mean?
I mean, when it comes down to it, 9 times out of 10, they're gonna say, "Well, these Haitians came from Mexico, so we're gonna send them back to Mexico." That's where they crossed that. So again, it's already being done. It's just not being said. Just like he tried to say that there was a whole bunch of crimes happening with the migrants and the undocumented and or illegals or whatever.
He's still saying that.
Yeah, he's still saying it, but the whole point of it is, where is it at?
Yeah. Well, there's Lincoln Riley. That keeps coming up.
Oh, yeah, the one case.
Well, she is somebody that lost her life to an illegal immigrant, is she not?
Oh no, I agree with that, and I agree that shouldn't have happened, and I agree with if they would have did a more thorough check, maybe that she would still be here.
Right.
I'm not in agreement with anyone taking anybody's life. Okay. Just like with the guy who's the big healthcare bigwig that just recently lost his life.
Yeah, you're talking about the CEO there in New York that was gunned down.
Yeah, you asked, was there any sympathy for him, and it was like, nah, it's not that I mean, I don't know the situation. That's why I don't choose to speak on it. We don't right now. We just assume that that's the reason why he got gunned down because.
Well, there is no. I mean, no matter what the reason is, you can't just walk up and pop somebody in the back.
Exactly. So that's my point. But again, over that, it's a life. So I mean, I'm not giving them an excuse to take a life. If Buddy wasn't doing something that he shouldn't have been doing to a patient or his daughter or something like that, then I don't think that should have been his fate. And that's not how you handle that anyway. But again, it was a question. Do we have empathy in this country? And it's like, no. I mean, it's the same way that they're doing with the border. Oh boy is the same guy that Obama had, right? The one that's supposed to be the real border czar.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the difference between him being under Obama and being under Donald Trump is Obama was more dignified to the people. He was more...
Are you sure? Because Obama was separating families and deporting everybody too.
I wouldn't say he was separating families. I would say...
No, I'm saying that he was doing that. Obama was separating families at the border.
In what way, in what fashion? Was it the same fashion that Donald Trump was doing? Which again, it doesn't matter. You saying he was separating families.
I think the reason Trump got criticized more for separating families at the border was for 2 reasons. First, he was bragging about it, and Obama was not. So that's going to be the first reason. The second reason is Obama was doing it, similar to how if you go out and commit a bank robbery with your kid with you, they're going to separate you from your kid. That's part of the process. But they're not doing that specifically as a deterrent. Trump's administration was part of the punishment was intentionally separating you from your family. They made it clear, we don't want you to be with your family. We want to do this to punish you. So they were using separating families as a punishment. I mean, and they were admitting it. That's what they were saying. So,
and the sad to say that is true, but that's not even the number one reason. The number one reason why Obama didn't get hammered on it is because the right wasn't saying that the border was secure. The right wasn't giving him a pat on the back. The right wasn't saying that he was the deporter in chief until it was time to say, well, he was the deporter in chief, so we should be able to do it.
Yeah.
So
you make a good point. The right was interested in trashing Obama, so they couldn't actually come out and say while he was in office,